You know, we love to hear your stories of miracles, your stories of healing. Sometimes those healings come outside of medical possibilities. We believe in this house that God can heal you when everybody says you can't be healed. And we believe that in faith. I'll even go so far as to say that at the end of our time together, we're gonna have prayer team at the front of the room. We'd invite you to come forward and pray for healing, pray for help, pray for lids to be lifted. We'd love to partner with you in that way, personally. If today you'd like to begin following Jesus, come forward. Say, I wanna follow Jesus, I don't know how. We'd love to lead you toward that. But in my family, we are celebrating a miracle in our home. And it comes to the form of 1 year ago, we were on a medical journey with my dad. He was struggling with walking and some other things and balance, and it was not like him. And kind of the Thomas DNA is push forward, you know, like, come on, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, let's go, you can do it, let's go. And sometimes though, your body just doesn't cooperate with your will. And went to the doctor and got a report that there was a debilitation happening on the spinal cord, that in 1 year, he would be in a wheelchair. You would see your pastor emeritus, Dr. Claude, in a wheelchair in 1 year if they didn't have this surgery. So a year ago, we were in a hospital waiting for the result of my dad having a major spinal surgery to help with some of the nerves and some other things. And I'm excited that 1 year later, he not only preached a funeral yesterday, but he's preaching 3 times today at Keystone Church, because God has restored what the locusts devoured. And I'm just so excited. We were at my son's my son's graduation, and I was like, hey, mom and dad, he's way over there. If you want to stay here, we'll go and we'll bring him back over here. And dad's like, no, let's go. And I'm like keeping up with him, you know. That's the heart of Dr. Claude. And so I would love for us at Keystone to celebrate that miracle, but also honor my dad. This is my dad, who I grew up under his preaching. There's no my preaching without his preaching, and I want you to have this diet today and the meat that he's gonna bring. So can we stand to our feet and welcome our pastor emeritus?
Well, what do I say? Thank you, Brandon. I am so excited about what God is done and is doing and will do here at Keystone Church. And it is truly an honor, I got to tell you, it is truly an honor and a privilege for me to be able to stand here in this pulpit where this man preaches week in and week out. It's a joy for me. And I'm grateful, Brandon, to you and to Susan and to the whole team. You make it such a memorable, magnificent moment to be able to stand here for these few minutes and deliver something that God has put in my heart and my life. So thank you so much, Brandon. And thank you, Keystone Church. God bless you. And I want to thank this team that led us in the music a few moments ago. Absolutely. I don't know the story of all of them, but I know something about some of them, and some of them have walked through some really, really hard places. But they're standing up here declaring what they've experienced, that our God is a way maker. Yes. And we're grateful for that. Thank you so much. You may be seated. You always ask yourself the question, as a speaker, as a preacher, you ask yourself the question, how do I begin? Where do I begin? And for me personally, it's like I've gone back in life over the past couple of years. And I've had a lot of time to contemplate. And what does that mean? How do I relate? And I couldn't help but think about those years growing up in East Tennessee and going to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. That is so beautiful, so compelling. The rhododendron, the laurels, the huge trees, the teeming streams that are flowing, the waterfalls that are there. All of those things are part of my growing up experience. And they have indelibly imprinted themselves upon my heart and upon my mind. When I begin to think about life and things, some of those experiences in those mountains, they come back, rushing back. It's almost as if I can see them and experience them again. I think about one particular instance. A friend and I were trout fishing in the Smokies, and we had spent days fishing there and made a makeshift camp at the end of the trail. And we'd fished all day. I'd like to tell you we had caught thousands of fish, but that would be a little bit of an exaggeration. But we had fished, and it had been a great experience. As we approached where we had made our camp, we could hear voices. And when we arrived there were some scouts that were there. And we began to talk to them, and they told us what was going on. They said that they were a part of a larger group that had set out floating down the river, and they were going to float down until they came to a particular place that they got out. Well, this particular group said they got out early, but they were not all that was there. There were two other groups that were still in the mountains. It was evening, and the day was disappearing into dusk and the night. So they said, "Do you know this area?" "Yes." "Well, we've got two more groups somewhere between here and those falls." So my friend and I, we took off back down the stream on the trail, and as we walked along, we'd stop and we'd call off down the trail. We'd call out for them, call out. As we went through one particular area, we heard a faint response. We stopped immediately, made our call clearer, and our repetition of call more. And in a few moments, we heard a faint response, and we listened very carefully. And there came a group of scouts, young boys who had been huddled up, wet, cold, and scared on the side of that mountain. When they got to where we were, my friend and I traded, one in the lead and one at the back. And the person in the lead, we knew the trail well, and it wasn't totally dark. And so the one in the front was giving guidance, and the one in the back making sure we lost no one. We made our way back to the camp. But they reminded us there was another group, and they're down there somewhere. And we knew if they floated all the way down and across the falls, it would not have been good for them. So after we settled that group, my friend and I jumped into a car. We went over to the ranger station, and we told the ranger what the situation was. And he said, "I've got a flashlight. Let's go ahead." Grabbed a flashlight, and here we went. One singular flashlight in the dark. There was no moon. There was not any light. The canopy of the forest covered anything and everything, and it was dark, but we had a light. And we followed that ranger down that trail. We went all the way to the falls, calling out, calling out, calling out. No response. We did not find that group, But we went to the falls, and there was no indication anywhere that anybody had floated over the falls and gotten into harm's way even more. We went back knowing that and praying that they were okay. We went to sleep, exhausted. The next morning, we were awakened with the sound of helicopter blades roaring over our head. And what had happened is the ranger had called a rescue party, and they had made their way back down. And when they made their way back down in the daylight with a helicopter, they were able to isolate, locate, and bring the final crew back. I thought about that very often, about how dark it was. And my friend and I leading them out as it got darker and darker. Then following the ranger with his singular light that we followed him, not only down, but all the way back. It was an amazing experience that has put an indelible imprint upon my heart and mind. How important light is to you and to me. We have to live in the light. And I want to talk to you for a few moments about living in the light. But to do that, I want to take you back. I want to take you back to another scene. I want to take you back to a city that is dear to my heart and was dear to the heart of the people who live there. And it was the city of Jerusalem. Located in the city of Jerusalem in this day that I'm taking us back to was the temple. It was the center of the religious life of the Jewish people. And in that temple, they worshiped. They worshiped through priests who went in their behalf. There were celebrations that the Jewish people had been directed by God to observe, and one of those is called the Feast of the Tabernacles. There are three great ones: the Feast of Pentecost, the Feast of the Passover, and the Feast of the Tabernacles. On this particular occasion, they were celebrating the Feast of Tabernacles. It had been given to them many, many years before, and for decade and decade and decade, they had celebrated it. Here's what they were doing. When the people of Israel left their slavery in Egypt, making their way to the land that had been promised to their forefather Abraham, they did not know how to go. And there were two critical things for them in their heart and mind. One of them was, we want the presence of God with us who delivered us. We want to be assured that God is with us. Secondly, we want to make sure that we're experiencing the guidance of God because we want to experience the fullness of life. So they are celebrating. And at this feast, they placed giant menorah type lighting structures in the courtyard of the Jewish people. And in that courtyard, these giant menorah, the priest's son would climb up this ladder. They estimate it's about 75 feet in the air. They climb up there and they fill these bowls with oil. Then they take parts of the priestly garment, make wicks out of them, and then they light those lamps. And when they lit those lamps, everybody began to celebrate. They were led by the priest, certain priests. They were led by the young adults, certain young adult priests. And they would dance, and they would play, and they would sing, and they would celebrate as they remembered what God had done. Well, as that was going on, there's a young rabbi who steps forward. And the young rabbi draws attention to himself, and the people are fascinated. Here's what he said. It's recorded for us in the Gospel of John. Gospel of John, chapter 8. The rabbi said, listen to these words, I am the light of the world. You're celebrating the light that you had indicating the presence of God and the guidance of God as you made your journey through the wilderness. You're making your journey through life. I want you to know that I am. When he said that, it was very emphatic. In the Greek language, there is a construction that you can put together, and when you do, it draws special attention. And so what Jesus did standing there as that young rabbi, he said, ego I me. When he said ego I me, it refers to the very presence of God. And when he said that, it drew their attention. He said, I, myself, I am the light, not just for the Jewish people, not that just burns at celebration. I am the light of the world. John 8, verse 12. And then he goes on. He says, those who follow me will not walk in darkness, but they shall have the light of life. I want to say to you and me today, Jesus steps forward and he says, come close. I want you to hear what I'm going to say to you. You see, we need light. We need light. We need spiritual light. We need light. Jesus says, I'm exactly what you need. I am the light. And he says, I am the light of life. I am the light of life. And I am the light you need. He is the light. Now listen, they remembered how God was among them. Jesus said, I am the light that connects you to the God you are worshiping. I am the light that connects you to the God you are worshiping. What a great statement. Isn't that amazing? For you see, there's something inside of all of us that says, I want to connect with God. I want to know God. However many millions of people there are on this planet, there is something constructed inside of our being. It reaches beyond the physical, reaches deep within us into our souls, into our hearts, into our lives. And inside, we may not be able to articulate or to explain it, but there's something inside of us. I've seen it all over this planet. Jan and I, and Brandon was with us, we were in Thailand. We were there doing a conference. And between the conference sessions, if we had a little time, we'd try to find our way into something, a better meal than the conference meal. But, just something. And so we were in the city and we were at a Buddhist temple. Fascinating. Walked up to the Buddhist temple. We wanted to go in, but the priest who was standing there was guarding and wasn't so welcoming. And so we had a conversation. We persuaded him, maybe even bribed him a little bit. I'm not going to say. But he finally let us in, and when we got in, over in the corner over here, there was a young adult sitting before a priest. What was he doing? The priest was trying to help him connect with the God that he was desiring inside of him. Here's what I want to tell you. There are 44,000 temples, Buddhist temples in Thailand today, which tells me there are people scattered all over that landscape who are searching for God. They want to connect with God, the God we've not seen. Want to connect with him. I want my life to be real. I want to feel that I have reason and purpose and strength and vitality. I want that, and somehow I know it's tied to God. When Jesus said, ego I me, he was saying, listen to me. I am the one who can connect you to eternal, holy, other God. Think about that, my friend. And it will cause you and me to pause and say, Jesus, you are the light that guides us to connect with a God we desire to know and to be with. Do you sense that? Have you ever had that driving desire that you can't really fully describe, explain, or fulfill? And then you step across the line of faith, transfer your trust to Jesus, and somehow, some way, by God's own mysterious manner, what he does, he reaches through Jesus and pulls us to him. You see, the Jewish people, they wanted to know God was with them. And so that light, a pillar of fire by night, the Shekinah glory in the daytime, they want to know God is with us. And here's what I want to say to you and me. When Jesus came, he made possible for you and me to connect with God. And we can say, he is Emmanuel. He is God with us. When Jesus was upon the earth, he ran into people who were antagonistic. And on one occasion, he was talking to them, and they were talking about their father. The Jewish leaders were talking about their father. And Jesus said to them, these Jewish leaders, I and my Father are one, John chapter 10. And then to the disciples in the upper room as they were gathering, and Thomas looks at him and said, if you can just show us the Father, we'll all be satisfied. Listen to what Jesus said, John 14. He said, if you've seen me, you have seen the Father. He guides us to connect with eternal God. Jesus is the light that connects us. He's also the light that gives us life. He gives us life. Listen to what he said in John 8, verse 12. He said, I am the light of the world. He that liveth and believeth in me and follows me, him I will give life. Jesus is the light that gives life. He declares that in John 8. In John chapter 9, it's amazing how it all sequences. Jesus not only declares that he's the light that gives life, but he demonstrates that he's the light that gives life. He encounters a person who had been blind from his birth. He had never seen the light of day. He had never seen his mother's tear. He had never seen his daddy's smile. He had never seen the leaves they dancing in the wind. He had never seen any of that. From his birth to his adulthood, he was blind. He had never seen any of it. Jesus encounters him. You know what Jesus does? He makes an ointment. Strange, I'm not going to describe all of it, but it's a strange ointment. Well, I think I will. With a little bit of spittle and a little bit of mud, he makes an ointment, puts it on the guy's eyes and tells him, go wash. The guy went, and when he washed, and as he washed the ointment off, he could see. He could see. Here he is, celebrating his vision. He encounters some cantankerous Jewish leaders. And they said, what happened to you? We hear that you've been made able to see. And who did this? Where is he? I don't know. Began to noise abroad in the temple courts that Jesus had healed this guy, but the Jewish leaders didn't know where he was or who he was. Jesus hears about it. He hears the rumor. He searches out and he finds the guy that had been blind and now could see. And he begins to talk to him, because inside of that person, the healing of his physical eyes was not everything that he needed. He needed something else, and he knew he needed something else. And so Jesus began to converse with him, and as he does, he says, do you believe in the Messiah? The one that is going to come and deliver us all, the one who's going to come and connect us with God. Do you believe in the Messiah? And the man who had been healed said, I don't know. Who is he? And Jesus said, you're looking at him. You're looking at him. It's me. It's me. And the man who had his physical eyes healed, at that moment, out of faith, he had his spiritual eyes opened, and he could see there's Jesus. And the text says, and he worshiped Jesus. Here's what I want you to know. The man could see the life around him physically, but when Jesus opened the eyes of his heart, those spiritual eyes were enlightened, and he could see what you cannot see with your physical eyes. He saw through the spiritual eyes of faith into the face of the Lord Jesus, and he bowed down in worship of him. I want to tell you something. There's something worse than not being able to see physically. There's something worse, and it is having the ability to see physically but not be able to see spiritually. Jesus reached in and not only touched this man's physical eyes, he touched his spiritual eyes. There's a statement that I want you to get. I want you to know, because it's so powerful that I want you to even see it. Jesus opened the man's physical eyes to the world around him, but he also opened his spiritual eyes to the world above him and the world within him when he opened the spiritual eyes to his heart. Now, here it is. When our eyes are open to the world above us, that spiritual world, when our eyes are open to the world above us and the world within us, we are able to live in the world around us. You see, living in the world around us is not just physical, it is spiritual. Jesus has come to bring us into connection, relationship with the eternal holy God. And Jesus has come in order that you and I can have life. And as he said in John 10, I've come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. In other words, he's saying, I've come to offer you something besides bread and water. I've come to offer you something that is more than your physical well-being. I've come to offer you something that only God can give you, and that I've come to offer you life within and life with eternal holy God. Have you trusted him? Jesus is the light that connects us with God. He's the light that gives us life. And Jesus is the light that gives us guidance in life. Over the years, Jan and I have been privileged to travel to different places. One of our favorite places has been for years, is to go to Israel. And we met a guy who's he's in heaven. I believe he's with Jesus. He told me one day, your Messiah and my Messiah is the same Messiah. I said, Avi, my Messiah is Jesus. And he looked at me and he said, Claude, your Messiah and my Messiah is the same person. We'd fly in and land catch a bus and go down to Jerusalem. When we got to Jerusalem, get off the bus, there would be Avi Shemesh. And Avi would look at us with a big smile and he'd say, Jan, Claude, welcome home. Welcome home. We wanted our experiences to be rich. They could have never been richer than they were with our guide. I could have had a map, and we could have left Jerusalem and gone down to the Jordan Valley. We could have gotten with a map and drove up to Galilee. We could have gone in a lot of places. But when Avi was our guide, and we got to those places, Avi knew the Bible inside and out, New Testament, Old Testament. He'd open it up and he'd share with us. And what we received when we got his perspective was an enriching of our experience. I want to tell you that God has come in the person of Jesus to be your guide and my guide in life. He will give us what we need to have those enriching, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experiences. Listen to what he said. I have come that you might have life, and you might have it in its fullness and abundance. There's a word there, that word translated abundance, fullness. It literally means that which is beyond the necessity. I'm going to give you a life that is beyond physical. I'm going to give you a life that has that extra to it. We call it living life with the extra. We talk about it as living on another level. When Jesus said, I've come that you might have life and you might have it more abundantly, what he was saying to you and me, let me be your guide, and I'll walk you into a life that you never dreamed possible. I'll walk you into a life that you didn't know that even existed. And that's what the Feast of the Tabernacles were celebrating. They were celebrating that God led them through a journey that they could not make any other way, no other way. When you and I hear Jesus reaching into our hearts and into our lives to speak to us, what happens is when we by faith transfer our trust to Jesus, he steps out of heaven, as it were, into your heart and into your life. And he becomes our guide to a life that we cannot experience any other way. Jen and I, we've been through some challenging times in life, interesting occasions. We were in one of those times. We were trying to make decisions like you try to make. We were trying to make a decision. We had our breakfast Bible reading and prayer and time, and Jan looked at me and she said, Claude, what are we going to do? What's the decision? Where are we going? What are we going to do? God spoke to me, I believe. Until this very day, I'm convinced he spoke to me. I stood up out of my chair, had a visual in my mind, the visual in my mind that Jesus was in that room with us. I said to her, I'm going to put my hand out and put my hand in his hand. I'm going to put this hand behind me, and you're going to put your hand in my hand. In hand, you and I are going to walk by faith following Jesus. I want to tell you, friend, that's exactly what we've tried to do all of our days. Could I invite you? May I invite you? If you've never stepped across a line of faith, to have that eternal, spiritual, life-giving, life perspective that you cannot find anywhere else, could I invite you to step across the line of faith, put your trust in Jesus, and allow him to take you by the hand, connect you with eternal God, and guide you on your journey through life. If you've never done that, there'll be people here after the service, after we finish, there'll be a group of people. they're here to help you if you want to make that decision, if you have that decision within you to make. If you're making other decisions, they'll be here to pray with you. If you have other needs, they're here to pray with you. So, I'm going to pray. I'm going to turn it over to the team. And at the conclusion, there'll be people here to pray with you. If you've never been connected, if you've not connected your heart, your life with Jesus, today's your day. Father, thank you for being so good to us. We're so grateful, thankful, in Jesus' name.